Ladies and gentlemen, the big-time guests just keep on coming into Pigskin Frenzy. We're ready to rock and roll. Week 0 is here for college football. We're fired up. We have a very special guest from CBS Sports on today. Tom Fornelli joins us here in a little bit. We're so fired up. We're ready to rock and roll. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joel Norris, and whether you're watching on YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, or Apple, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Thursday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me and Tom Fornelli here in a little bit, because you're going to love some of his takes as well. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. Just all you got to do is share around with others and follow on there as well. X and Instagram at pigskin_frenzy. Follow the pages there. You're going to get episode updates, news and highlights from across college and NFL football. Trivia questions on Instagram stories. Going into today's college football question. Guys, ready? We're so fired up. 5,200 listeners, about to be at 5,300 listeners. We're going by really, really quick. It's growing rapidly. Can't thank you guys enough. Our Lord and Savior Jesus, we give him all the praise for this show. Without him, we would not be doing this, and we would not be in this business. Very special guest today. He is from CBS Sports. He's a writer for CBS Sports. He's also co-host of the Cover 3 podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Fornelli. Tom, welcome to Pigskin Frenzy. How are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm fired up. I mean, college football is around the corner. Week 0 this weekend. We also have week 1 next week, because I mean, everyone's going to be pumped up about that next week. But week 0 is an interesting, has some interesting games, and we're going to talk about one in particular this coming up Saturday. To start us off this Saturday morning, Farmageddon. So we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But before we get into that and talk about college football, talk about your life outside of sports media. Just talk about who is Tom Fornelli when he's not doing the Cover 3 podcast.
Tom Fornelli, when he is not doing the Cover 3 podcast or writing at cbssports.com, is a guy who's trying to golf as much as possible. Honestly, that's really the one thing the last few years that has kind of begun to consume my life outside of work. I did not play growing up. I started playing a few years ago, took some lessons. We moved from, I had lived in the city of Chicago for years with my wife. We moved to the North Shore, some suburbs, north of the city. And where I live, there are just golf courses everywhere. And there's a really nice public course that's probably about, like a half mile from my front door. So it takes me 2 minutes to get there. So I was just like, you know what? If I'm going to be so close to all these golf courses, why not try to figure it out? I was an athlete as a kid. I like to be competitive. Give me an outlet for that. And so last few years has been a whole heck of a lot of golf. And that's really it. It's worker golf these days. I'm a pretty boring person that way.
I mean, I had Daily Joy on from SEC Pretty on from the other day for Pigskin Frenzy. She says she's getting into golfing too. So talk about just golfing in general. Is it fun? Because I've been asking a lot of people, because I've just been seeing golf just a lot recently. I don't know why. Should I just start getting into golf, or
define fun? Because there are certainly times when you're out there playing and it is not fun at all. You are miserable, you are angry, you are playing horrible. And that is the one thing I think about the sport, is that, I mean, obviously, if you watch professional golf on television, it's those the men and women playing professionally are insane as far as their ability level and the stuff that they're able to do. For the rest of us, it is a very humbling experience, because you could play very well, and for an average golfer to play well usually includes about 10 or 11 terrible shots per round, where you're hitting the ball 20 yards, or you're chunking it, or you're shanking it, or you're doing all sorts of different things. So I love it simply because also where I live, the course I primarily play at is typically slow during the week. So I'll be able to get out there and play around by myself. So then it's just me in the middle of a beautiful golf course with nothing but, the sounds of birds and everything going on. So just to kind of get, when in this industry, especially with the podcast and writing, it's you have to be on the internet so much. So for me, I think one of the secrets to it is just the fact that you're kind of disconnected from everything for a few hours, and you're just kind of getting away from it all. So that, combined with the competitive nature of playing it, is, for me, I think, the primary appeal.
So are you like the Scotty Scheffler of CBS Sports and Cover 3 podcast?
No, I'm Danny Cannell is far and away the best player of our podcast. Danny is what is called a scratch golfer. Like he is a very good golfer, which is not a shock. He was a quarterback, and quarterbacks had a lot of free time when when they were playing during his day. So he was able to play a ton of golf growing up, and also he's just a tremendous athlete. I would say that I might be second or third best though. You know what? No, I'm better than Bud and Chip. They stink. I'm better than they are. I've never played with them, but I could take them.
So you're second. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
I need to get Bud and Danny Cannell on the show. Bud's already following me on X, so shout out to Bud Elliott on there. And I need to get Danny on here because I saw his playoff bracket earlier today, and I was like, that's quite interesting.
Danny taking an interesting stance. I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, that was very interesting. That's not a call out, Danny. I would love to have you on the show. I would love to have you on. Let's talk about getting you into sports media. What kind of got you into it? What's your, I'm pretty sure it's everybody, you have to have a passion and love for doing this, right? So talk about what got you into it.
It was not the traditional route by any stretch. I was not a journalism student in college or anything. I was working as a manager of a drugstore in Chicago, and it's a popular chain for those in the area called Jewel Osco, and I was managing one of them. I'd started working there when I was a teenager, and I just kind of had worked my way up. And then it's like, even after I was done with school, I was like, well, my career path here is going pretty well. I could put this to good use. And then I was doing it, but also on the side, this was like when the blogosphere was really getting started. It's like, you think now the landscape we're in now with like podcasts like this one and TikTok and all that stuff, which is, I think, the new avenue to kind of break through is this way. Back then it was with your like blogs. Like you would just go online, whether you're using WordPress or Blogspot or whatever, and you could just start a blog in 5 minutes, and then you could just completely immediately start sharing all your ideas and thoughts right there in the written word instead of in the video and spoken form. And, hopefully somebody caught on. And if you did it enough, somebody would notice if you were good enough and you were producing enough content. So like I was working, 40 to 50 hours a week at my regular job, but then I would come home and I was writing sports blog and I was updating it frequently. And I remember, like, I had seen there was a website that was coming out. It was called AOL Fan House, back when America Online was still a thing. And it was like the first kind of national attempt at like a national sports blog where they were bringing in bloggers to cover every single sport, every single team. And I had reached out to the person running it, Jamie Mottram, at the time, and I says, hey, I'm willing to, I was more of a baseball writer then. That was my primary focus. Like I was a college football fan, but I wasn't really writing it. And I had reached out to help cover baseball, and he read my work and he gave me a shot covering the AL Central team. So I was covering the White Sox, the Twins, the Tigers, the Royals, and the then Indians, now Guardians. And I started working there, and then I was able to start branching off into college football while at AOL Fan House. They started letting me, cover some of the Big Ten and Notre Dame and that kind of stuff. So that kind of just led to me really breaking in as somebody that was recognized. And then this also is when Twitter kind of started, like in 2008 or 2009, I think is when Twitter began. And I guess I was funny enough or sarcastic enough at the time to actually gain some sort of following on Twitter. So that kind of expanded my, what we now call my brand. And then eventually one day I was sitting there. I remember the day I was at the receiving dock at my Osco that I was managing. There was a shipment of beer coming in, and I was sitting there just goofing around with the drivers who were, the same drivers. I was friendly with them, and I was, doing the inventory on the shipment that was coming in. And, the phone rang, and I heard, on the intercom, I had a call on the line, and I picked it up. I took it, and it was Eric Kay, who's one of my bosses here at CBS Sports, and he offered me a job to work at CBSSports.com as a college football writer. And I mean, I knew at the moment, like it wasn't an easy decision, because working at Osco, full-time, salary, healthcare, you had all of that stuff. And it was kind of scary to leave that and go into this, which, I mean, I wasn't a full-time employee at the time. Like when I was to leave, salary-wise wasn't that dissimilar, but it was the stuff outside of salary that it was going to cost me, because I was going to have to start paying for my own insurance and all that kind of stuff. So it was a little bit of a scary decision, but it was also a very exciting decision, because I'd realized I had nothing against the job I had. I enjoyed it. It was just, there was a reason I was taking so much of my free time to write about sports, because it was a passion, and to talk about it and to cover it. I mean, I played sports growing up. I've watched sports my entire life. I love sports. So it was a passion. So I took that gig, and that was in 2010, and I guess I've been there ever since. They haven't fired me yet, so that's a good sign.
Hey, that's a good story. And plus, like you said, they haven't fired you yet. So that's good. Talk about not really just, getting into sports media anymore, but working for CBS. And what's it like when you got that call to work for CBS? I'm pretty sure that was a life-altering decision when you got the call, like, hey, we want you to come work for us.
Yeah, it changed my life dramatically for the better in a lot of ways, both in my career and outside of my career. And it was very interesting because I was hired at the same time as Chip Patterson, who's one of my co-hosts on Cover 3. Like, we came in at the exact same time. I was older than Chip. I think Chip was like 24, 25 at the same time. And it was the most surreal moment to me. Was like, we used to do these things like, because Chip's in North Carolina, Hamir in Chicago, Dennis Dodd at the time was in Kansas City, and we had all our writers, and like the offices are located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So every summer before the season, they would bring everybody together in Fort Lauderdale to kind of go over the game plan for the upcoming season. And now my first year there, I didn't do it because I was quite literally hired 2 weeks before the season started in 2010. So I quit my old job, gave my notice, finished up, and then the very next day, I'm sitting there, okay, week 1 is starting for 2010. I'm immediately jumping on board. But then that following off season, and that August before the season starting, they called us down there for what we called the summit. And I'm sitting there, and I'm at the Marriott, at the bar at the Marriott. It's me, it's Chip, it's a couple other guys who were starting with us. But then I'm with like Dennis Dodd, and I'm with Tony Barnhart, and I'm with Brett McMurphy, and I'm with all these guys who for years I've been reading. And for it's like like kind of like, I wouldn't say idolize, but just like people that you look up to and you respect for the job that they did. And I'm sitting at a hotel bar with them at the end of the night. We're just kind of having a few drinks and talking, and like these are guys who I really respected, who were all of a sudden like were asking me questions because they wanted to know what I thought about certain things. And it was like one of those kind of mind-blowing things. So yeah, it's really awesome. And then you start covering these games, and you're going to stadiums that you've only been able to see on TV, and you're getting these experiences from like these campuses and these sites and all this stuff that's just like, it's incredible in person. But then you're also in the press box, and just like that same kind of feeling where I was meeting Dennis Dodd, but I'm meeting all these other writers who I've always read and always respected, and I'm getting to know them to where now like some of them I'm considered friends with. It's a very cool experience. I would say it has been, working for CBS as far as my professional life is far and away the best thing that's ever happened to me. And it was a scary decision at first because of all the other stuff, but it is not one I regret at all. It was a great choice.
And before we talk about college football, I'm just going to PSA, guys, listen to this episode because this is a dream chasing opportunity. You only got one shot at chasing your dreams, so go and chase it. I'm chasing mine. Tom Fornelli, while he's still working at CBS, still living out his dream. Keep on plugging in and keep on chasing and staying the course. I say it at the end of the show every time, but keep doing it. Let's talk about some college football. I know that, I mean, why not, right? I mean, it's a college football show. So let's talk about some of the sleeper teams and your sleeper teams in each Power 4 conference. So I'll start with you. We'll talk about mine. You'll probably think like you're kind of crazy for thinking that maybe, but I want to hear your thoughts. Who are your sleeper teams in each Power 4 conference?
I'll start with the ACC. I would say my original sleeper team, as far as like 3 weeks ago, was Virginia. Because this was a team I thought, Tony Elliott's kind of like in a hot seat situation. Things haven't been great there his first few seasons. And, you lose Anthony Clancher to UNLV, but you bring in guys. And I think if you look at their transfer portal class, like it was not a headliner class, but it was a pretty impressive class as far as like increasing the talent level on Virginia. And I looked at this team and I looked at their schedule and I was like, hey, man, this is a squad that could catch a lot of people off guard in 2025, but they've been getting hit with injury after injury in camp these last few weeks. That has really kind of dampened my optimism about who the Who's can be. So I've changed it. It's not really an out of left field pick. It's, I think, a sensible pick. It's a pick of a team that won a few big games last year and nearly pulled off the biggest upset of the season, possibly. I'm going with Georgia Tech. I wrote about Haynes King a few weeks ago. I think he might be the most underrated quarterback in college football. And I don't mean that as like an NFL draft prospect, because I think we get stuck way too much in this sport with projecting the college quarterbacks as future NFL players instead of just appreciating who they are and what they are and how they can help their current teams. And I think Haynes King is a plus value add for Georgia Tech, period. And I just think that that coaching staff has done a very good job of putting that roster together, developing an identity. I think what the next step for them is consistency, because you have seen them play up to opponents and play really well against teams you don't expect them to, but then get caught kind of napping against teams that they should have an easier time with. If they're able to find that consistency in 2025, I look at Tech and I look at the ACC and I see Clemson, I see Miami, and I see a whole lot of question marks outside of those two in that league. And I think Georgia Tech is a team that could take advantage of that and could be one of those teams that, look at what SMU was able to do in the ACC last year. I think that could be Georgia Tech in 2025, the team in the ACC that's all of a sudden a playoff contender that nobody really saw coming.
I like Georgia Tech. That's a great pick. Georgia Tech is my ACC champion runner-up, actually, behind Clemson. Yeah. So I picked, in my conference standing projections on Pigskin Frenzy, I did Clemson and Georgia Tech. So I'm very appreciative of that pick. I think that a lot of people are underestimating them for, I don't know why. I really love Buster Faulkner as their OC. Yes. I love how they run their offense, and I think with Jamal Haynes at running back, with Haynes King at quarterback, I think that just dynamic 1-2 punch combo is just going to be lethal for defenses, and I don't think a lot of people are going to see it coming, rather. But my sleeper team for the ACC is NC State.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Let me hear why.
Mine is because, I don't know, I just feel like CJ Bailey is an underrated quarterback. I like Justin Jolly at tight end. I love their offense. I had a girl named Savannah Tujay on, the offensive line coach, NC State's offensive line coach's daughter, came on my show. She talked about reasons why, so go back, guys, and listen to that episode. I like their offensive line because of that reason. She told me about how well they're being developed, the depth of the offensive line's building. So I think just for those reasons alone, I'm going to go with NC State. I think they're my sleeper team. Now, I'm not going to sit there and think they're going to, win the whole conference. I'm not saying that, but I do think that they can shock some people, win some games that a lot of people don't expect them to win. So give me NC State. But you were going to mention about Georgia Tech. I didn't want to interrupt you. Oh
no, I was just with Georgia Tech. I just think that Buster Faulkner, if you're a Georgia Tech fan, you better enjoy him while it lasts, because I don't think he's going to be there as your OC long. I think he's got a head coaching job in his very near future. But going to NC State, I do like the call, because I do feel like Dave Doran has built up a certain level of credibility as far as what he's been able to do with that program, to where the floor is pretty high. And it's like last year to me felt like more of an outlier. So if they bounce back and have a really strong season, I think, it'll surprise a lot of people, but then you'll look back and you'll be like, wait, why are we surprised by this? This has kind of been the expectation for them.
Absolutely. So, I think it's a unique pick. And I think that CJ Bailey is going to have some room to grow. I mean, it's his first really full season starting. So, I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. Let's talk about the Big 12. Even though we're going to talk about the Big 12 in a minute, but let's talk about the Big 12. So, who are your sleeper teams for that conference? It's a deep conference.
All right. So, all off season, there's been who's the next Indiana, right?
Right.
And there's been a lot of teams mentioned. Like Illinois gets mentioned all the time as this year's Indiana, which is a complete misunderstanding of what Indiana was, because Illinois won 10 games last year. It's like if Illinois comes back after a 10-win season and makes the playoff, that's not coming out of nowhere. Indiana was a team that nobody thought anything of going into last season. In fact, Kurt Cignetti was getting made fun of far more often than not for, just being as confident as he was, showing up at the pep rally and saying, we're going to, Ohio State stinks. We're going to go kick their butt. And everybody's like, what is this guy talking about? You're Indiana. But then you look at the formula. He shows up from James Madison, where he was running an excellent program, brings a lot of the players from that program with him to Bloomington for the Hoosiers. He gets an excellent veteran quarterback in the transfer portal to come in and just bring it, solidify that roster. So if we're looking for the next Indiana, we need to find a team with a new head coach who's brought in a bunch of transfers from a successful G5 or now G6 school. Rich Rodriguez, who's pretty familiar with West Virginia, comes into Morgantown after taking over at Jacksonville State. And that was a program new to the FBS level in Conference USA, who he immediately turned into one of the best programs in Conference USA. And he's bringing most of that roster with him. A lot of the key players from that team are now going to be Mountaineers, and they've also been very active in the portal elsewhere. So if I'm looking for this year's Indiana, the team that nobody's really expecting much of, but has some continuity and has some talent who could really surprise people, and they're particularly doing so in a league in which there really isn't your clear-cut super team that you have to be fearful of, I'm taking West Virginia as my Big 12 sleeper. They could finish 3-9. They could finish 10-2. I don't know.
That's a unique pick. I was on a show yesterday on X, and they mentioned, they were like, talk about the biggest storyline in the Big 12. Rich Rodriguez coming home. Immediately, I started singing John Denver. Immediately, when I said I was quoting it, I was like, immediately started singing John Denver. I was excited. I'm excited about Rich Rod coming back. I grew up watching him at West Virginia, then going to Michigan, which was to me, like, interesting move when I was a kid. But I mean, watching him grow up as a West Virginia head coach is unique, and I'm really excited about him coming back. I think my sleeper team, and for the Big 12, I don't know if you can really call it a sleeper, but probably Texas Tech. I think what Joey McGuire is doing, and I know it's all the oil money down there. I mean, NIL, but oil money down there. What they're doing and how they're building up is just really, really unique. Something's going on down there in Lubbock. So give me Texas Tech to be my sleeper team for the Big 12. I really like how they're building, especially roster-wise. So, yeah.
It's a good call, because that is a team that is spending with intent. Like, they're looking around at the Big 12, and now that Texas and Oklahoma are gone, they realize that there's not, the big dog on the block. And they're saying to themselves, why can't we be the new big dog on the block? Why can't we be the premier program in the Big 12? So the financial support that they've gotten, which is so key to everything that happens in this sport now, like, it's always been important, but now that you can just outright pay the players, it's taken on an extra kind of level. So to be able to go into the portal and get the amount of talent that they have, but they're also using it on the high school side, bringing in top talent who might not, who won't be playing this year or paying dividends for them this season. But as far as the future is concerned, it's like, yeah, if Texas Tech keeps spending like this and keeps performing like this, both in the portal and on the recruiting side out of high school, this is a program that could emerge in the next few years. And you look at it now, like, they already have a talented team. They have an excellent veteran quarterback. They've got talent on that squad already. They weren't too far away in the Big 12 last year. There were a lot of close games that they just found themselves on the wrong side of. So you get a few more breaks, you add some more talent, and that's suddenly a team that I agree with you. They can win that league. They can get to the college football playoff.
Absolutely. Big 10. What about the Big 10? What do you think? What are you thinking of your sleeper team for there?
It's tough, because I do feel like that secondary tier in the Big 10 is kind of jumbled up. And I do feel like you could see a number of different teams kind of leap forward. The one that keeps coming to mind for me, though, is Nebraska. And I know this is like the 20th straight year of maybe this is it for Nebraska. Maybe this is the year they get their act together. Yeah. But, Dylan Raiola, 5-star quarterback, very talented. Ups and downs last year, but he was a true freshman starting at quarterback. And I feel like the last 5 years, because of COVID, with the proliferation of 24-year-old quarterbacks everywhere, we all kind of, forgot, hey, true freshmen tend to take time to really adjust and get to their peak levels as quarterbacks in this sport. Well, he's got a full season as a starter under his belt. I think they made a tremendous upgrade at the offensive coordinator position by bringing in Dana Holgerson. I have questions about the receivers because they lost their most productive guys, but I still think that if you look at Dana Holgerson's history, like, he'll have guys catching a lot of passes and getting yards. He figures out ways to get them open. The offensive line, I think, will be good. I don't know if it'll be great, but I think it'll be good. Defensively, question marks. They lose their defensive coordinator. They lost a couple of key guys from that unit, but I keep coming back to, if you're familiar with Matt Rule as a college coach, throw out what happened in the NFL. Don't worry about the Carolina Panthers. But when he was at Temple, they won 6 games in his second year, leapt to 11 wins in his third. At Baylor, they won 7 games in his second year. They were 10 wins in his third. Last year, Nebraska won 7 games. History suggests that Matt Rule teams take a leap forward in their third season. So I look at the talent on the roster. I look at Matt Rule's ability to build a program, and obviously his clear blueprint and plan is for that team to be ready by the third year. Although maybe Nebraska fans didn't want that when they first hired him, and maybe he wasn't coming out and saying that, but I just think his history suggests that's what he does. He builds for that leap forward in that third season. So I think there's a chance that Nebraska leaps up and becomes like that fourth team in the Big Ten that could be the playoff contender. Because listen, I'm an Illini guy, love the Illini, but far more history suggests that Illinois, after a 10-win season, is probably not going to win 10 games again. Indiana, great season last year, but you're also still Indiana. Like, I don't know if the expectation should be to win 10 games again. And yeah, USC, maybe you're hoping is better than it has been. Maybe Iowa can take a step forward now that they've got a new quarterback. But I just look at Nebraska as a team that, with their talent and with their schedule, I think that a 10-win season is not a likely outcome. But I definitely think it's far more likely than most people realize. So they're, to me, a sleeper team.
That's a good. Hey, that's a good pick. Nebraska could be one, so I'm not going to argue with you on that one. I like Washington as a name or a team that no one's really mentioning, only because I think that Damon Williams Jr. has a shot at breaking out and showing some flash with this offense this year. I think Jed Fish and inherited a program that was Kalen DeBoer left to go to Alabama. A lot of players went with him, but at the same time, he's inheriting a program that is, coming off of a national championship, run, right? Or runner-up run, rather. But Damon Williams Jr. is a name sticking out to me that a lot of people aren't talking about, and I think that he can have command of that Washington offense. So I'm going to go with Washington. I'm going to go with Jed Fish, Washington. Do I think they're going to, go off and win the national championship Big Ten? Probably not, but I think they're going to win some ball games, and a lot of people aren't really thinking about them for sure.
Yeah, I think Washington, especially when you look at their depth chart, their starters are very strong. I do have some concerns about their depth if they suffer injuries, but I think, and I talked about it in our show today, I think their secondary could prove to be one of the best in the country. I think Damon Williams is one of the more electric playmakers that, as you're mentioning, the nation as a college football whole might not be totally familiar with, because there wasn't a ton of reason to watch Washington last season, and he didn't start until their bowl game, but he got plenty of snaps during the season, and he was electric when he was on the field. My lone concern about Damon is, having met him, for a kid who runs as much as he does, not the biggest guy. He's a smaller kid. I would worry about injuries, but the sneaky thing is, they've got Kai Horton, who came in as a transfer from Tulane, who is plenty of experienced at quarterback. So I think that is one of those things where it's like, Washington can't be the best version of itself if Damon Williams gets hurt. But God forbid, if he does get hurt, Horton behind him, I think, is a player that could at least make sure the floor doesn't fall out from beneath him, and it can keep them in the hunt, especially if that defense, it turns out to be as good as I think it has a chance to be.
And you got Denzel Boston at receiver, too. He's a electrifying playmaker, too. So, Damon, just stay healthy. Let's just all stay healthy at Washington. I know the depth is a little bit, but let's just stay healthy, and y'all can try to make a good run at it, please. So, last but not least, SEC.
I don't know how people are going to feel about me labeling this team as a sleeper, but I do think that they're being eliminated a little too easily. I've got LSU, man. If you look at the SEC, Texas is going to be good, but they've got a new quarterback who hasn't started before, really, and as a name starter. He started when Ewers was hurt, but he's not. He was never the number one on the depth chart. They're replacing a ton of players along the lines of scrimmage. Alabama's got a new starter at quarterback. They're a little bit, more returners on the lines of scrimmage, but there's still question marks there. Georgia, new starter at quarterback. They have to replace nearly their entire interior offensive line, and the interior of that offensive line was far and away the best part of that offensive line last year. Their tackles, I thought, for Georgia standards, were below par. And here's LSU, who also has a ton to replace on their offensive line. I'm not going to pretend they don't. Will Campbell was the top, 5 pick. 4 of their starters are gone. But they've got Garrett Nussmeier back. They've got incredible running backs. They've got great wide receivers. That defense under Blake Baker last year's first year as defensive coordinator was still not good or good enough, but it took steps forward to where they want to be. And from what I'm hearing coming out of camp, there's a lot of positivity about that defense heading into 2025. So I just look at LSU as a team that we know when LSU is good, LSU is very good. But I think that they've kind of, because they haven't lived up to the hope of bringing Brian Kelly in from Notre Dame, they haven't really reached those heights, even though, they had Jaden Daniels win a Heisman, but they wasted it because the defense was absolutely horrific that season. I think this is a team that might actually find its stride going into 2025. I wanted to stand out a little bit. I picked LSU to win the SEC. And I don't think it's a crazy pick. I even had them winning the national title when they made me play off they play out the playoff bracket, just because I feel like in a year like this where there are so many different teams that you feel like can win a national title,
Right.
why not go for the one nobody's really picking? So I'm on LSU. I know it's silly to call them a sleeper because they're freaking LSU, but I just don't think enough people are paying attention to the Tigers.
And a lot of people are probably going to think I'm crazy for saying that. Well, not really crazy, but they've been getting more notoriety, especially since, I've been seeing a lot more on X and everything. But I'm going to go with OU, Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. I know Mateer is in there. John Mateer, going to make a difference. Ben Arbuckle coming from Wazoo as well, making a difference. I don't know why no one's talking about Jay Nott at running back. I think Jay Nott at running back from Cal, when he was there, did some electrifying things. He's going to even break out even more in this OU offense as well. Brent Venables calling plays for the defense. I think that's going to be actually help them. Give me OU. I'm all in on OU. In fact, I probably would not be surprised if Oklahoma went undefeated by Red River rivalry. So give me Oklahoma as my sleeper.
Yeah, the formula, we know what the formula is that they're going for. Like, yeah. With Mateer, Ott, and then you've also got Javante Barnes, and you've got a couple guys behind him in that running back room.
Yeah.
And you compare that with the defense that they have, which will be one of the best in the SEC, which if you're one of the best defenses in the SEC, you're typically pretty good. So this is definitely going to be, it's not going to be the kind of Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Lincoln Riley, Oklahoma team that you've seen in recent years where you think of like an air raid, air the ball out. This is going to be like a ground and pound football team. They're going to look to control the clock on offense with their run game, get some explosive plays because it is designed to get them. And with Mateer and with Ott and those guys, you will be able to break some long runs for touchdowns and then just suffocate teams on defense. I think that the path is there. I just worry about the schedule a bit, and I need to see improvement forward from the offensive line because that's clearly what they're believing they can do. But that offensive line last year, if it's the same one that I saw then, it's going to be really hard for them to do it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think OU's got a really, really strong chance, but I don't know, man. After hearing your LSU pick, because it does make you think. Because I have LSU in the SEC championship. I have them losing, but I do have them in the SEC championship. So I have Texas winning. I just think Texas is loaded on both sides of the ball. But I really do like that LSU pick because I mean you really don't know, especially in a time like this where there's so many teams, right? Why not? Let's go all in with LSU. So that's a unique pick.
And it's a little terrifying right now is Auburn's had an especially hectic week.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anytime Auburn's having a hectic week, you kind of got to be scared that it's like, uh-oh, here comes Auburn. They're going 12-0 out of nowhere all of a sudden. So yeah. I feel like that's another option for us for a sleeper team in the SEC too.
Hey, man, they could go for their 10th national title.
Fifth this week. Yeah.
I had to throw that joke in there. Let's wind down and conclude today's episode of Pigskin Frenzy with our first Pigskin Frenzy game of the year. Farmageddon in Dublin, week 0. Kansas State versus Iowa State. Give me your keys, and then we'll talk about our predictions.
Well, first of all, I want to say I have no problem with them opening the season with games in Ireland. I do have a problem with them taking actual rivalry games like Farmageddon and moving them to Ireland. This should be on campus somewhere. So a quick objection to that. As for the game itself, I mean, it's an interesting spot because these are both two of the teams that, if you look at the Big 12 in recent years, have been some of the better programs. Kansas State won the league a few years ago. Iowa State nearly won the league last year. But there are questions surrounding both teams in that, Iowa State had a great season last year, but they were pretty much like Rocco Becht is a good quarterback, but he was also helped out a lot by having 2 NFL wide receivers on that offense, like guys who went in the first half of the NFL draft. We're not talking about 7th round picks. And you wonder, like, just given Iowa State's history, how easy of a time do they have replacing that production with those 2 guys? So I do feel like early in the season, it's going to be interesting to see what that passing offense looks like. So I think that is going to be the key. If they're able to find ways to move the ball through the air, because Kansas State's defense is always going to be fundamentally sound. If they're able to kind of stack the box against them and force Rocco Beck to beat them without actual targets to go to, it's going to be tough hoeing for Iowa State in that game.
Absolutely. Man, Avery Johnson is just so good, isn't he? I think he's really, really good. And he's got Dylan Edwards in the backfield, who I think is a very underrated back in the Big 12. I don't know. That offense is looking really, really good. And like you said, their defense is very fundamentally sound. Who do you have winning this game?
I'm going to go with Kansas State. It's not an overly high level of confidence, but you mentioned it with Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards. I think that when you have those two, as far as because Avery Johnson is, if you're not familiar with him, very, 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 very fast. Dylan Edwards, very, 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 very fast. Like Kansas State is going to be able to scheme up some explosive runs for those guys, because if they're going to be running like RPO kind of stuff, and you have to pick your poison as a defense, the other guy's going to have a chance to break it on every single play. So I'm leaning Kansas State because of that. I just think offensively they are a little more dangerous right now. And I know if you paid attention last year, like Avery Johnson had some big time struggles early in the season. Particularly coming to mind is that loss on the road to BYU, in which he had a horrific evening. And I think because of that, a lot of people kind of checked out on Kansas State because they weren't really a threat in the Big 12 anymore from that point on. But he got so much better as the year went along that I feel like this is another one of those cases where it's a young, inexperienced quarterback taking his lumps in his first year as a starter who now might see that second-year bump. And I think we could see a second-year bump with Avery Johnson, who is extremely talented. So I'm going with Kansas State to win this game. It is the Big 12. It is a 3-point spread, so it is quite truly a coin flip situation. So it could go either way. But I think Kansas State wins far more often than not.
I think if Rocco Beck finds targets, though, you would think Iowa State could probably pull it off and win the game.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be a really fun game. I can't wait to watch it. I don't want to listen to those folks out there who don't think week 0 is the actual start of college football. You can't tell me the season hasn't started when we're going to be watching Kansas State versus Iowa State in a conference game. The season starts. It's a real game.
Yeah. This is it. You know what I mean? This is it. Oh, why not? Let me risk it. I'm going to go with Iowa State.
Red odds.
I will. Let's just throw it all on the table. Screw it. Let's just go with Iowa State. I think Rocco Beck finds a way to find targets. He's going to find a way to change the game and get it done, just like he did in the Pop-Tart Bowl. We're going to get that with Rocco Beck. Why not? Let's go all in. I think Carson Hansen could be a difference maker in this game as well. He was a very solid running back last year. I think he's going to even be better this year. Give me Iowa State to win this game. Super close. Not going to be probably covering 3 points. I'll give it even a score of 27-24, Iowa State beating Kansas State. Nice. Kansas State is I could get that one wrong. Let me just put it that way to start off, but it wouldn't be like me to, not get it wrong. But Tom, I know you got to run. Thank you for joining us for Pigskin Frenzy. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully you get back on. Any final thoughts as we, get ready to start the season?
Nothing profound. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. And let's just hope we have a very fun and exciting season. I think that as far as, I think there's a whole lot more uncertainty to this season, not just in the national title picture, but from conference to conference as far as who's going to win each league than I can remember in a long time. So I think we could be in store for a very truly exciting and entertaining season. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Tom Fornelli from CBS Sports and co-host of the Cover 3 podcast. That is all for Pigskin Frenzy today. Guys, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Thursday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. All you got to do is share around there with others and follow on there as well. X and Instagram is at pigskin_frenzy. Follow the pages there as well. We are so thankful to have Tom Fornelli on today and to talk about some college football. Guys, enjoy the weekend. Week 0 is here. College football's back. Iowa State, Kansas State on ESPN, 12 Eastern, 11 a.m. Central. You're not going to want to miss it. Tuesday, we have a big episode coming up on tap. Ghost of Texas Football joins us to talk about the Texas Longhorns, to talk about the college football season as well on Tuesday. Until Tuesday, I'm Joel Norris. That was Tom Fornelli from CBSSports.com and the Cover 3 podcast signing off. For everybody out there, we love you all, praying for you all. Please and always stay the course.